Okay, so this is the first witness, and for some reason, this is where it starts. I didn't cut anything off. I don't know why they didn't go live on the initial where they called him to stand, he's sworn, and all that. The defense is, or the prosecution is already questioning him, so I have no idea what happened before this. Remember, this is a prosecution witness. This is also a guy facing charges for the straw purchase and for helping Kyle get the gun, and his trial was pushed back to January till after this trial. We call that a clue.
Say you go to their house. Where was their house located?
Antioch, Illinois.
Now, we're going to talk about the night of August 25th, 2020, so I want to use that as a frame of reference. How long before that date had you known the defendant?
Roughly 9 months.
Was that the same period of time that you were dating his sister?
Yes.
And how frequently would you see the defendant during those 9 or so months?
About every day.
You mentioned there were times when you would go down to his residence in Antioch, is that right?
Yes.
Were there times when he would come to your stepfather's residence here in Kenosha?
Yes.
How often would that occur?
Weekly.
What sort of things did the two of you like to do together?
Everything as a kid. Hanging out, going to the lake, hunting, going up north, just.
We were friends until I'm facing jail. Now I'm testifying against him.
Everything you would do growing up.
You mentioned hunting. Is that something that you and your family are interested in?
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
We own property in Ladysmith. Every year growing up, I would go there with my stepdad and my brother and go hunt. Ever since I was a little kid.
When you say hunt, what sort of things would you hunt?
Deer, turkey, pheasant, rabbit.
Can you describe your family's property in Ladysmith for us?
Yeah, it's about, I want to say 13 acres of land with somewhat we would call a shooting range, which is like a big open gravel pit, and it's pretty secluded and private in the woods.
Now, you mentioned that the defendant was interested in hunting. Did you ever bring him along hunting up in Ladysmith?
I wouldn't say hunting. We did bring him once to go kind of just get a feel for hunting and shoot guns and just kind of get away for the weekend.
Do you remember when that was?
I would like to say a few months before everything happened.
If I said it was in early May, around May 1st of 2020, would that sound right to you?
Yes.
Now, do you remember a time in which you and the defendant were up in Ladysmith and there was some discussion about purchasing a gun?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
We were going up and we had stopped at a store that was local to buy like clay pigeons and ammo. Kyle had also wanted a gun similar to the one I had. He did not, or I did not have the money for it, so he said he would pay for it. I told him that wasn't a good idea. He wasn't 18, but we came to an agreement to where he could have it once he is 18. It would be kept at my house until then. So it kind of went on from there.
Sounds like they were fairly reasonable. You can't have it till you're 18. I'll go ahead and buy it. Doesn't sound like they were, I don't even know if they get a straw purchase on that. He didn't give him possession of the gun. He kept control of it. For all practical purposes, it was his. Possession is 9/10 of the law.
What kind of gun was this?
An AR-15.
Did you have one of those already?
Yes.
Did the defendant see that gun that you had?
Yes.
How did it come to be that he saw that gun?
Just from when I bought it. He had saw it at my house, or just me opening it from the box.
And he indicated to you that he wanted a similar type gun?
Yes.
Did the defendant say anything to you about why he wanted such a gun?
No.
Now, you just mentioned the fact
Because it's motherfucking Texas and I can own one and I want to own one. That's why, you left-wing little Poindexter.
that the defendant was not 18. How old was he in May to August of 2020?
17.
And you discussed that he couldn't have a gun because he was 18. Is that something that you and the defendant actually talked about?
Yes.
Can you tell us about those discussions?
Man, they must have had to cut this guy some special deal in order for him to testify. Because he is literally giving information that goes to his guilt, and now they can use all this testimony against him at his trial. Why would somebody do that without a deal? I mean, anybody that doesn't question his testimony, I'll tell you, man, this is BS.
It was more along the lines of he would be 18 soon. I told him I didn't want to do it because I knew it wasn't, obviously he can't buy it legally. We did agree that it wouldn't be his until he was 18, and he was aware of that.
So it wasn't his. So you bought it and it wasn't his.
And from then on, it did stay at my house.
So when you were up in Ladysmith, I think you said you went to a local store to purchase the gun. Is that correct?
Yes.
In whose name was the gun purchased?
Mine.
So you were the legal registered owner of the gun?
Yes.
Where did the money come from to get that gun?
Okay.
Actually, we don't have registration here in Texas. And, I guess we're not in Texas. Sorry. Maybe they have registration there.
No.
After the gun was purchased in Ladysmith, did the defendant use it?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
We just target practiced. We bought a pretty good amount of ammo and just shot clay pigeons, and just went to the woods on our property.
Now, you mentioned earlier there was some sort of, I think you said a shooting range on the property. Is
Yes.
that right? Can you describe that for us, please?
It's about 250 yards long. It's an old gravel pit that they used to obviously get gravel. It kind of just turned into the shooting range for us. It's a big open field.
Did you and the defendant shoot your AR-15s on that shooting range?
Yes.
You mentioned it was about 250 yards long. Did you have targets that far away?
Not entirely. It was, I mean, more at the time it was just like iron sights, so that wasn't a realistic range to shoot. We
250 yards with end sights is very realistic. This guy's not a gun. I mean, he looks like a young kid too. Like, give me iron sights, I'll take your ass out at 250.
would set up clay pigeons hanging on trees at the end of the range and just kind of walk a certain amount of distance until we felt comfortable it was the right spot.
What would you say the farthest distance away would be that you shot targets at with your guns?
Say about 75 yards.
Were you successful in hitting what you were shooting at?
Not all the time.
I'm going to ask the detectives here to show you a couple of exhibits that have been marked as exhibits 27 and 28. And I'm going to have them handle them for safety purposes, but I'm going to have them hold them up and show them to you, and I'm going to ask you if you can identify them for us, okay?
Okay.
Let's show the scary guns to the juror. Ooh.
And I want to represent to everyone that these items are not loaded.
Yeah, I should believe you. Let's go ask the DEA agent that went in front of a school and shot himself in the leg if his gun was loaded.
There are no bullets or anything like that. I believe that Detective Antaramian is holding up what has been marked as exhibit number 27. Detective, is that right? That's number 27? Okay. Do you recognize that item, Mr. Black?
Yes.
What is that?
One of the AR-15s.
Notice his gun is sticking out of his suit. He's armed. This gives credibility to the jury. You always want to carry a gun and badge because then the jury goes, oh, he's a professional. Oh, he's on the defense side. Oh, the prosecution has him doing all the work. They're on the same team. We must believe him. Courtrooms are stacked, people.
Do you know which one that is?
I believe it's Kyle's. I'm not too sure.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that yours and the defendant's look very similar to one another?
Yes.
Do you remember if there are any particular markings on one or the other that would help you to identify them?
The only difference was the sights.
What was the difference in the sights?
One of us had a bigger one. I don't remember which one it was.
Okay.
Oh, that's what she said.
I'll have the detective now show you the next exhibit, which is exhibit number 28.
I guarantee you, if I was working at the DA's office, they had me working this case, they wouldn't have me working it long. Because I'd be finding all kind of evidence clearing this guy, and they'd be like, yo, man, you're supposed to be finding stuff to help convict him, not clear him. I'd be like, no, I'm supposed to be finding the truth. You lawyers are the ones that like to find shit so you can win. And then they would have removed me from the case.
Detective Antaramian is now showing you another item, which is exhibit number 28. Do you recognize that?
Not from the last time I've seen both of them, no.
Okay. And I noticed that the gun that he's holding up doesn't appear to have a scope on it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are AR-15s the type of weapon where a scope could be added to them if need be?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Detective. Okay. Could you grab that, please? Detective Antaramian indicates there's a scope. Maybe we could show Mr. Black both of the scopes, and you could tell us if you recognize which one might be yours. So, I believe Detective Antaramian is showing you one of the scopes.
How is this relevant? We know it's a gun. Which gun was used? What? You're presenting the evidence. How is this relevant? I mean, they're not asking questions about who shot and who. Maybe they're trying to say we want him to identify. He bought both guns. He possessed both guns. Those are both his guns, but one of them really belongs to Kyle because Kyle gave him money for it. Maybe that's where he's going. I don't know.
Are you able to recognize if that's yours or the defendant's?
That is not mine.
Okay. So that scope came, you believe, from the defendant's gun?
Yes.
Okay. And if you recall, thank you, Detective, the other weapon that we had that had a scope on it, now that you've seen this other scope, does that help you remember which gun was which?
Yes.
Okay. The other gun that we showed you, which is Exhibit 27 with the scope attached on it, was that your gun?
Yes.
Okay. So these two exhibits, 27 and 28, are, 27 is the first one is your AR-15, and the second one is the defendant's. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move exhibits 27 and 28 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Can you help us understand, Mr. Black, why you were interested in having an AR-15?
I kind of wanted like a personal project. I had mostly only had hunting guns, and I wanted to try something new to target shoot. I have a lot of family with guns like that. They kind of find it a hobby to build them up and put different attachments on them, so I figured I would try and get into it as well.
How long had you owned that AR-15?
I want to say 2-3 months.
Before May or before August?
Before May.
Okay. And in that time period, had you made any modifications or additions to the gun?
Just the scope.
I assume if life had kept going forward like normal, you would have continued to do so?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to talk a little bit in a few minutes about...
I want you to notice that the prosecution is in front. He's facing the jury. Okay? Whoever talks up here is facing the jury. But it's blocking the defense. It gives him center stage. But yet, when the defense will get up here, you will see the prosecution still having eye contact with the juror. Remember, the defense, the government, always stacks the deck. They always get to sit closest to the jury because they've done studies, and the closer and more contact you are with the juror, the more they identify with you, the more they connect. Government wants every advantage they can because it's not about getting to the truth. It's about winning.
About the night of August 25th. Other than that night, was there ever a time in which you went out in Kenosha holding or carrying that AR-15?
No.
How would you normally store or carry around that weapon if you did?
In my arms. I mean, if I'm driving, it would be, disassembled in the back of the car, unloaded.
Maybe I was not clear on my question. I believe you said that up until the night of August 25th, you hadn't went out armed with that AR-15 in Kenosha. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
When you did have it with you in Kenosha, was it disassembled in the trunk of your car?
On the way there, yes, but once we had arrived, no.
Where did you normally keep your gun on a daily basis?
Locked up inside the house,
Whereabouts inside the house?
in the safe,
Where was that safe located?
in my dad's room.
Did you have a key to that safe?
No,
Who did?
my dad.
When you wanted to get your AR-15, did you have to get your dad's permission?
Yes.
And just so we're clear, when you say dad, that's technically your stepdad?
Yes.
Okay. So, for example, in May when you went up to Ladysmith with the defendant, who all came along with you?
It was me, Kyle, my brother Ray, my friend Cody, and Kyle's sister.
Do you remember approximately how long you spent up there?
I want to say it was the weekend.
When you went up there, I assume you brought your AR-15.
Yes.
Did anyone else bring any other guns along with them?
Yes, we also brought like a 12-gauge hunting shotgun, and then I think my friend brought his little .22 pistol.
And I think you said earlier that your dad, your stepdad, and your brother were also interested in hunting?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how many rounds you and the defendant would have fired off at that firing range up at the property in Ladysmith when you were there that weekend?
A lot, I would say 100, 200.
That's not a lot. I can fire that off in like 5 minutes.
May I approach you? Mr. Black, I'm going to show you a document which has been marked as exhibit number 7. Do you recognize the photograph on that document?
Yes.
Who is shown in that photograph?
Kyle?
Was that a photograph that was taken when you and the defendant were up in Ladysmith around May 1st of 2020?
Yes.
Does that photograph show the defendant holding his AR-15?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move exhibit number 7 into evidence.
I would have objected to the defense right now. Your Honor, he already said that he didn't give Kyle the gun. He kept the gun up here. Kyle couldn't take possession of the gun. I would argue that the defense just said it was Kyle's gun when Kyle couldn't even use or hold the gun unless he came up here and visited with him. And the gun may have been in possession of Kyle, but he was with the gun and he was with Kyle. So why does the prosecution keep saying it's Kyle? I might have thrown that into the mud, but anyway.
No. Received.
May I publish that to the jury, Your Honor, on the screens?
You may.
Mr. Black, do you recall what day that photograph was taken when you were up there?
I want to say the same day we arrived.
Does that photograph show in the background there the property that your family had?
They didn't even name the photo on this. This is EGXPM1. I wonder if they changed this photo, or is that what the photo was named when they took a screenshot of this? 26 likes, 24 followers. Bro, I'm just trying to be famous. Wow. It was 44 degrees. I can't really see what else, other information on here. All right.
Up in Ladysmith?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember who it was who actually took that photograph?
Yes.
Who was it?
My friend Cody.
Do you remember if that was before or after you and the defendant went to the firing range and
It was before.
practiced? Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, after you and the defendant returned to Kenosha from Ladysmith, and the defendant, you purchased this gun for the defendant, what happened to the gun after that?
It was locked up in the safe.
Which safe is that?
The one in the garage. It was the one that you required a code to open.
That's the garage at your father's place?
Yes.
Here in Kenosha?
Yes.
Stepfather? I'm going to use that interchangeably, but technically that's your stepfather, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. Did you have a code to open that safe?
No.
Who did?
Only my stepdad.
So the defendant didn't either?
No.
Why didn't the defendant take that AR-15 back to Antioch with him?
Because we had an agreement that he wouldn't do that.
Because I bought it, I maintain possession, I maintain care, custody, and control of the gun because I paid for it, and he wasn't allowed to have it. What's the problem? Sounds like it wasn't his gun.
What was the reason why?
He was 17.
Was the defendant accepting of that? Did he understand that?
Yes.
Do you recall having any discussions with his mom about that?
Not me personally.
I want to talk about the time period between when you came back from Ladysmith in early May and the night of August 25th, 2020. In that period of time, did the defendant ever possess that AR-15?
No.
On the day of August 25th, 2020, the day when all this stuff happened, did he possess that gun?
Yes.
How did it come to be that he gained possession of that gun on August 25th?
My dad took a lot of the weapons we had out of the safe due to all the rioting and stashed them inside the house in case somebody were to come break into our house, and that gun happened to be one of those weapons.
Do you know how the defendant took possession of it that day?
I do not. All I'm aware of is that it was downstairs.
When did you first see the defendant with that weapon that day?
When I was in the kitchen, so about, I want to say, a few hours before we left.
And tell us what you saw when you were in the kitchen.
I saw him coming up the stairs with it.
With the AR-15?
Yes.
Did you hear him ask you permission to take that gun?
No.
Did you hear him ask permission from your father?
No.
When the defendant came upstairs with that gun, what, if anything, did he do with it?
I believe he set it down on the table and started looking for medical supplies.
What do you mean by medical supplies?
Like bandages, rubbing alcohol, certain things like that.
Do you know why he was doing that?
Yes, in case somebody was hurt downtown.
We've seen some photographs that night of the defendant with a bag that looks like a medic bag. Do you remember him having that night?
Yes.
On that night? Do you know what was in that bag?
All the medical supplies that he was gathering.
Were those medical supplies gathered from your house?
Yes.
Do you know if the defendant got any medical supplies from Walgreens or any other store or anything like that, or was it just all from your house?
I know there wasn't any from any store, but I'm unaware of anything that happened after we had got to the lake.
So I believe you described that the defendant took the gun into the kitchen, put it on the table, he was gathering some medical supplies, is that fair to say?
Yes.
What happened after that?
We proceeded to get ready, and then we went down to the lake.
You say we, who do you mean?
Me and Kyle.
Where did you go when you went down by the lake?
At first we had parked by a friend's house, and then we walked to, I want to say, the back parking lot of Ruther.
And what did you do there?
We met up with our friend Nick, and then we proceeded to go to the car source locations.
When you say Nick, do you mean Nick Smith?
Yes.
When you say car source locations, we've heard some testimony about 3 different locations. Can you help us understand which one you're talking about?
The first one we went to was the one that would be closest to us right now, so further south.
I apologize, I was a little distracted there. Can you tell me again, which was the first one you went to?
The one that was further south.
63rd and Sheridan, does that
Yes.
sound right? And when you say we went there, was that the defendant, you and Nick Smith?
Yes.
What happened then?
Then we met the owner once again, and he gave us a ride to the north location and dropped us off.
Okay, I'm sorry, you say you met the owner once again. When was the first time that you met him?
Previously in the day, I want to say it was around morning time when we were cleaning up all the graffiti.
So maybe I've jumped around a little bit, so I want to make things clear. If I could have just 1 second. I apologize, it's my fault. I kind of jumped in the middle of the day. So I want to start at the beginning of that day. That was Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, the day that all these things happened. So let me back up for a little bit so we can kind of go in chronological order. I think it's easier for everybody to follow. The night, Monday night into Tuesday, did you stay at your own home?
Yes.
Did the defendant stay there as well?
I do not recall.
Do you remember when the first time would have been that you would have seen him on Tuesday morning?
I don't know specifically what time, but it was before noon.
When you saw him, was it at your house?
Yes.
What happened when you first saw him? What did the two of you do?
Me, him, and my brother Ray decided to go down to the lake and kind of just look at how things were, and then from there on we decided to help clean.
When you say you went down to the lake, do you mean the actual beach lakefront, or do you mean downtown?
Downtown.
Where did you go when you went downtown the first time?
We parked right next to the car source location that had already been burnt down, and then we walked across Sheridan to Ruther.
I'm going to, may I approach, Your Honor? I have a map here of the area, and I'm going to try and prop it in such a way that we can all see it. I wish I had an easel, but I don't right now. Mr. Black, I'm going to, beginning on the, do you see that, Mr. Black?
Yes.
Okay.
Required to ensure that he does, and also I can't see it either. And then also, once we get that, then
Which way? Is that okay? Can
we're
we
waiting
wait
for these.
Yeah.
You can continue with the examination on something else.
Yes,
or you can
sir.
wait. There we are. Put it back so that the defendant didn't see it.
We're up
Can we
there.
maybe
Or up
angle
there.
it up there?
That's
Would that
actually
be
what
okay?
we use.
Yeah.
Yeah, use that.
How many attorneys and judges does it take to put up a freaking map?
Use that and show us on this map. I'm going to focus in on the first time you say you came down with the defendants.
So, no, then you could,
Oh.
if you want.
Yeah.
Or you can use the one Sister Mercier gave me.
I don't want to be accused of using a dangerous weapon, so I'll use it. Oh. You said
Yeah, let's make fun. Dangerous weapons. People have died. You talking about how serious this is and how important people's lives are. Let's joke around about dangerous
parked
weapons.
near one of the car source locations when you first came down.
Yes.
Can you point out where that was?
About right, we'll say right here.
And for the record, you are pointing to an area that is, I believe, on 59th Street, just east of Sheridan Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
And on this map, there's a label there of one of the car source locations at that intersection, at that corner. Do you see that? The previous night. I'm not sure what word you exactly used, but 59th and Sheridan. What did you observe? Now, there's a structure on that property, an office of some sort. Did you observe that office as well?
Yes, it was burnt down.
Did you look inside?
No.
Is it fair to say that every car in that lot was burned to the chassis almost?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you indicated you parked near there and looked at that location. Is that correct?
Yes.
What did you do next?
From then we walked to, which is now Harborside.
And on that map, can you show us where that would be?
I don't know if it's on the map exactly, but it would be more south up there.
And when you say south, you mean actually north?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're talking about the area near Ruther High School?
Yes.
Which would be right across the square from where we're at right now.
Yeah.
I wonder if they put the map up to where north is south now. If they put north at the bottom, that's probably why he got messed up.
Yes.
And why was it that you walked in that direction?
We noticed there was people cleaning the graffiti, and that was my old school, so we decided to go help.
Did you help?
Yes.
And what did you do to help?
Scrub the walls.
Did the defendant help as well?
Yes.
And how much time did you spend doing that?
I want to say 2 hours, about 2.5 hours.
Did you have any supplies on your own to use to clean, or did people already have some?
They had some. I personally left by myself to go get sandpaper, and then I came back to try it.
I've never tried to clean graffiti off a wall. How does it work?
Not very well.
No, I appreciate your efforts. What happened then after that?
From then we went back to the house and went home.
So you got back in your car and drove back to your house?
Yes.
I appreciate your effort, but come January 1st, I'm going to try and put you in prison. Don't forget that.
And your brother came along?
Yes.
What happened then?
From then, that's when we ended up getting the guns.
Now, we talked earlier about a time in which the defendant came upstairs into the kitchen with his gun. He started to gather some medical supplies. Are we at that point in the chronology?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure I've got everything in order.
As soon as we were ready, we went down to the lake, and that's when we parked at Nick Smith's house.
And I don't know if it is on that map or not. Is his house located somewhere in that area?
Yeah, it's not on the map, but it would be if the map was up more.
Okay. If the map was up
If the
more?
map were up more, yes.
Okay. So your friend Nick Smith lives somewhere near this area. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, behind Ruther.
Okay. And you went to his house. Is that right?
Yes.
Who came with you?
Just me and Kyle.
Did you have your guns?
Yes.
Did you have any ammunition for your gun?
Yes.
You personally?
Yes.
Do you know if the defendant did?
Yes.
Kind of stupid to have a gun with no ammo, but okay.
We've had some discussions at various points already in this case about a strap or some sort of device for retaining the gun. Did you have that type of item with you?
Yes.
And did the defendant?
Yes.
Do you know how those were, how you acquired those?
Yes, from Jelinski's.
When did you do that?
I want to say the middle of that day, in between us getting back from cleaning up graffiti and before we left.
So earlier you described coming down, looking at the burnt out car source location, going over to Harborside or Ruther and cleaning out some graffiti, and then leaving the downtown area. Is
Yes.
that right? Is that when you went to Jelinski's?
We did stop at the house first, and then I believe it was like an hour until we did go to Jelinski's.
When you say we, who all went to Jelinski's?
Just me and Kyle.
What was your purpose in going there?
To get a sling,
Why did you want a sling?
so we didn't have to hold it the entire time we were walking.
Do you recall if you and the defendant both got the same kind of sling?
Yes, we did.
Who actually went in and purchased the sling?
Kyle.
And after that, leaving Jelinski's, did you then go back home again?
Yes.
And that's when you acquired, or the defendant acquired the gun and the medical supplies?
Yes.
Okay.
Two kids out, just going to the store, chilling out, not knowing their lives are about to be completely changed that night.
And then after that, you said you came back down to the lakefront. Is that right?
Yes.
Where did you go when you came back?
We went to Nick Smith's, and then we met him at the Ruther parking lot, and from then on we walked to the car source location.
Now, I want to stop you for a second because you made a mention earlier of the owner of Car Source. Do you know that person's name?
I believe his name was Sam.
When, if at all, did you encounter him on that particular day?
We encountered him twice that day. The first time when we were cleaning graffiti, on our way back to the car, when we were leaving, we stopped and talked to him. And then after we had met with Nick later that day, he had brought us to Car Source to meet with him again.
Into this map, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And then you encountered the Sam on your way back to your car, which I believe you said was parked at 58th and Sheridan by that first Car Source location.
Yes.
Where in that process did you physically meet Sam?
On the corner next to Car Source, not the one that had originally got burned down, but the next one over across the street.
Can you please use your pointer to show us where that was? 59th and Sheridan, is that right? Condition of that particular Car Source location?
Yes.
How did it appear to you?
It wasn't entirely destroyed, but there were some cars that were damaged.
When you say damaged, what did the damage look like?
Like kicked in doors and hoods and shattered windshields.
Did there appear to be any fire damage?
No.
What about the building? Did you make any observations of that?
It was just boarded up.
Okay. And when you talked to Sam that first time, this first conversation, what did you talk about?
We basically just talked about the defamation that he had in his the one that had actually burned down, and how much money he lost, and how deeply he would be in case all his other buildings did burn down.
And was there anything more that you talked about with him?
We did exchange phone numbers in case he needed any help.
Did you feel at that point like you wanted to help him?
I mean, my help was definitely there, but I didn't offer any help at that point.
Do you know if the defendant did?
I'm unaware.
And when you say exchange phone numbers with Sam, did you personally give him your number?
Yes.
This guy seems pretty credible from a witness as far as believable. His answers are quick. He's not really thinking a whole bunch. He's just answering. That he seems legitimate. Seems a little nervous. Obviously, he's got a trial hanging over his head. If the prosecution is going to put him up here, they should have got him a shirt that fit, so it doesn't look like this shirt's like 4 sizes too small for his neck. But maybe they wanted him to look that way. I don't know.
Do you know if the defendant did?
Yes.
And then you said, we're going to fast forward a little bit because we covered some of the intervening time period. You said at some point you came back down later, you parked at Nick Smith's house, and I think you said you went to the Ruther parking lot?
Yes.
And then at some point you said you went down to Car Source, is that right?
Yes.
Which Car Source did you go to after you left the Ruther parking lot?
The one that would be closest to Ruther, on the same side of Sheridan.
Is it that same one we were just talking about on the southwest corner of 59th and
Yes.
Sheridan? Now, do you recall approximately what time of day it was that you came back downtown?
Let's say around 5 p.m.
And you and the defendant both had your guns with you?
Yes.
And those straps?
Yes.
And I believe you said you had ammo too?
Yes.
He's calling slings straps. What an idiot.
When you met with Nick Smith in the Ruther parking lot, was there anyone else there besides the three of you?
There was some other people that we didn't know that had also showed up.
And from there, you said you walked to the Car Source at 59th and Sheridan?
Yes.
Why did you go there?
We were kind of just following Nick. About halfway there, we found out that we were meeting the owner Sam again.
Did you actually meet the owner Sam again?
We met his brother, so the other owner.
Where physically on that map, can you use the pointer to show us where you actually met? Southwest corner?
Yes.
Was when you met with him, do you remember, were you in the building? Were you outside?
We were outside.
Do you remember what you talked about?
We just talked about pretty much how to get in if we needed to, and then Nick had brought up if there was any way to get on the roof, and if there was any keys we needed to get inside.
Why were you having this discussion with the brother at that time?
Pretty much just to know where to stand, to make sure that a lot of us were safe and what we were allowed to do, and if we were allowed to go inside the building in case something happened.
So it sounds like there was some discussion of physically staying at that location.
Yes.
Why?
That's one of the locations we didn't want to end up burning down.
Was it your intention then to stay and protect that Car Source location?
Yes.
Was that something that the defendant was also planning to do, as far as you know?
Yes.
What about Nick Smith? Him too?
Yes.
Now, when the three of you, the defendant and Nick Smith, meet with this brother at that Car Source at that time, was there anyone else involved in protecting that location at that time?
Just the people we had previously met with at Ruther. They weren't exactly in the conversation with who was going where at the time.
What happened after you met with the brother at that Car Source?
Me, Kyle, and Nick had got a ride from the brother to the, I want to say, south location, and then he had dropped us off there.
Could you please use your laser pointer to show us on the map where the south location is that you're talking about? And you're pointing to the Car Source location that is at the northwest corner of 63rd and Sheridan, is that right?
Yes.
And you said the brother gave you a ride in his car down there?
Yes.
When you got down there, did the brother stick around or did he leave?
He stayed for about 30 minutes and then he left.
Did you meet with anyone else down there?
Yeah, that's when a lot of people that we didn't really know had came from out of town and other cities to come help.
Do you, as you sit here today, do you remember the names of any of those people?
Very few.
What was going to be the plan for that night?
The plan was to have a decent amount of us split up between the two locations and then kind of stay there and make sure nothing bad happened.
Which location were you going to go to?
The one closest to Ruther.
The one up at 59?
Yes.
What about the defendant?
He was going with me.
So the two of you were going to be assigned to protect the 59th Street Car Source.
Yes.
Was there another group that was going to be assigned to guard the 63rd Street Car Source?
Yes.
Do you know who any of those people were?
No.
I don't know if the defense is, or the prosecution is going to cover this, but what he should be covering is your plan was protect the place. How are you going to protect it? Did y'all have a discussion on when you can shoot and when you couldn't shoot? If somebody was burning down a car, do you think you should shoot them? I mean, he could really pin these guys down that they really didn't know. And the defense may want to do this to this kid and make it look like these guys aren't out here like planning on shooting people. But you got to be careful when you ask a question like this, because if you ask that question, he goes, yeah, we talked about if anybody touches a car, we're going to blow their brains out. And then you're like, holy shit, I can't unring that bell. So that's, remember, the defense didn't get to talk to this guy. This is their only chance. The prosecution knows what this guy's going to say and what he's going to be asked because they went through it.
Were those people there in person when you guys were making these plans?
Yes.
So as far as you could tell, everybody understood who was going to be at one location and who was going to be at the other?
Yes.
What did you do next?
Then we walked to the Car Source location closest to Ruther.
Once you got there, is that where you personally stayed for the rest of the night?
Yes.
And again, you had your gun?
Yes.
And the defendant had his as well?
Yes.
Tell us about what you did when you were at 59th Street Car Source.
I had climbed the ladder and got on the roof of the building to kind of just watch out for people, and that's kind of where I stayed all night.
Why did you decide to go up on the roof?
I kind of didn't want to be in the mix of a lot of problems. I didn't want to, I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want to cause any problems. Figured it would be a lot safer up on top.
Okay, so that kind of sounds like a little bit of a coach statement, trying to point this guy out as Mr. Responsible, and Kyle has some crazy kid that wanted to be on the ground and get involved in shit. That looked like a little coach response to me.
Why did you bring your gun?
In case something bad did happen and I needed to protect myself.
When you say something bad happened, what were you worried about happening?
Anything. Being shot at, somebody coming up on the roof. I mean, there's a ladder in the back, so anybody could get up. Anything.
So if someone climbed up on the roof, were you going to use that gun?
Not really. I mean, it depends what they were doing.
You talked about not wanting to be on the ground because of your concern about things happening on the ground. Did you feel that if you stayed on the ground, you would be in greater danger?
Yes.
Why was that?
People could easily get access to hurting me or coming up closer to me.
When you say people, who are you worried about?
Anyone riding, anybody that was there.
The same people that burnt the freaking cars down at the other place and kicked out the windshield this place. The rioters, the violent people that were running around destroying things and committing crimes, and the cops weren't even in the area stopping it. Those are the people I was worried about. But, again.
For the wrong intentions.
So, what got it in your mind that night that you felt there would be people out on the street that would want to hurt you if you were down on the ground?
Didn't you say in your opening arguments that they had been burning up the city and rioting for 3 days?
I had heard about the previous night and how it was, and I knew that there was a lot of people fighting each other and a lot of violence. So I felt it would be best that I went there if I was going to go there, making sure that I could protect myself if I needed to.
But you were also there to protect the car source location.
Yes.
How were you going to do that from up on the roof?
Helping anybody else that was there. I'm spotting people that were throwing things.
And then what? If you see somebody throwing something, you had a gun, were you planning on shooting them?
No. I mean, when somebody sees a weapon, they're not going to want to start any problems, obviously. If I see somebody with a weapon, I'm not going to want to initiate a problem.
That's a good point. He kind of just said that this weapon was more of a deterrent. It was hopefully to stop violence, not to encourage it.
Was it part of your thought process that night that by having the type of weapon you did, that it would deter others from attacking you?
That's fair to say.
Were there others in your group at 59th Street Car Source besides the defendant who were similarly armed?
Yes.
How many?
Everybody except for one person.
And when you say everybody, how many people are we talking about?
6 or 7.
So it's fair to say that there were, other than you and the defendant, there were another 6 or 7 people that were all carrying AR-15 type weapons?
Yes.
Sounds like fear was rampant through everybody. Hopefully the defense is writing this down. Why did 7 people feel the need to be armed? Because we were scared. Why would you be scared? Because people were burning down stuff. So 7 people felt scared enough that they thought they needed a gun, and that's why y'all were armed. Is that correct? Yes. Perfect.
When you were up on the roof that night, what observations, if any, did you make about the crowd and what was going on the ground?
There's a lot of violence, a lot of screaming, a lot of people throwing things. You could definitely tell that people weren't just there for the reason they were. It wasn't a safe place to be at all.
Now, I'm going to ask you a little bit about the timing of that evening. And I'll represent to you that at some point in the evening there were crowds right out front of this courthouse, and then there were crowds that were pushed south on Sheridan. Do you remember anything like that?
Yes.
Can you tell us in your own words, when you first got to Car Source at 59th Street, was there a lot of people out in front of the building on the street?
No.
Did that change?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Later throughout the night, the crowd got pushed back closer and closer to us.
When we say push back, who was pushing them back?
The police.
And how were they doing that?
With the big trucks and a lot of rubber bullets and.
The crowd that was being pushed back.
The police were using violence on the violent protesters. Shocking. You asked why I needed a gun. The police had guns. Let me ask you something, Mr. Attorney in your suit, Poindexter. Would you have felt safe walking into that crowd?
What was their behavior like when they passed in front of your location?
Very violent. Very upset.
When you say violent, can you give us examples of the type of violence you saw?
Saying a lot of threats, throwing a lot of things. A lot of things along the lines of that.
Shooting guns in the air. They were armed, yelling at the police, knocking over things, kicking in windshields, as I already said, with the car, breaking things, destroying private property. Those type of things is what I saw was violent. See, again, I don't know who this guy's attorney is, this kid's attorney, but he's got to be careful, because if he hurts the prosecution too much, then they're going to slam him more, which is why his testimony is tainted. I'm at 34 minutes. Let me start another one.